These are the 10 things that require zero talent but will 10x your progress. Number one, go the extra mile. What it means is that whatever you are doing, try to think, is there something more you can do? Any objective, any aim you have, try to always think, is there something more you can do? For example, if you are submitting a research paper, think about if there is one more internal review you can seek. If you are applying for scholarships, try to think, can there be one more scholarship I can apply for? So, this extra mile is often the difference between a failure and a success. Number two, be on time. Now, being late or being on time, it's more of a habit than an act. If you're going for a meeting, try to be on time. If you have any other commitment, try to be on time. What happens is that I have seen people who are consistently late for certain commitments. Like I can see people who would often be late, even if that is 5 minutes late or so. What happens is that if it happens multiple times, it gives a very bad outlook of your professional conduct. So try to make it your habit that any commitment you have, I'm talking about commitments in the professional world, try to be on time. Number three, be prepared. What happens is that sometimes when we go to certain meetings or we engage in activities where we don't have any idea of what is going on there, it becomes more relevant in the context of research when we go, for example, to a meeting and then there is some research discussion going on, and if we are completely blank, it becomes more of an embarrassment. So, being prepared, it can save you from many different kinds of embarrassments. Number four, expect less and give more. Now, this is very relevant for PhD students because as a PhD student, you are at a junior level, and often the seniors they are involved in many different things. So often the PhD students bring more to the table as compared to the senior people. Of course, later on in your career, the table would turn, but at a junior level, what you can do is they try to give more and expect less. It will help you to build more networks, it would help you to build more collaborations, and that certainly would be more useful for in the longer run. Number five, present your research more often. Now, I understand that presentation is not the cup of tea for everybody. In other words, many of us are very much scared of presentations. However, what happens is that when you present your research more often, you can seek more feedback. Now, it doesn't mean that you always go on a bigger stage and you present your research. You can present your research in your group meetings, in workshops, in seminars. So that way, what would happen is that you would be able to seek more feedback on your research, and at the same time, it would help you to develop presentation skills. And trust me, being a good presenter is no less of a skill. It can take you far, far in your career if you are able to present well. Number six, seek more feedback. Now, as a PhD student, it becomes more relevant that you seek more and more feedback on your research. Why? Because when you talk to your other fellow PhD students, or you talk to the postdocs in your research group, or you talk to the professors generally, what happens is that sometimes they give you a very good feedback. I'll give you an example. I wrote a paper, and that paper I was discussing with a postdoc in my research group. And then he was just generally talking about, okay, this can be done, that can be done. And trust me, I picked a very good idea of how to look at the same data from a different angle. And then I ended up writing another paper based on the same data. So when you talk about your research to your fellow PhD students, postdocs, or other researchers, sometimes they give you some very valuable feedback. Number seven, manage up. Now, what happens is that in your PhD, the relationship between you and your supervisor is very important. Often at times, people think that if you end up having a good relationship with your supervisor, 50% of your PhD is already done. Now, you can't really control this relationship fully, okay? But what you can do is that you can do well on your end. You can try to understand your supervisor. You can try to see that how what is the best way that the work can progress from both ends. So try to not only just kind of expect from your supervisor. What you can do is that you can reflect that, okay, how well, how what is the best way to manage this particular relationship. Number 7, notifications. Now, these days when we are open to so many different kind of notifications, it becomes more important that we have certain control over these notifications. What it means is that when you are in full working mood or when you are in your peak energy hours, you should try to turn off the notifications. What notifications I'm talking about? There are notifications about emails, there are some social media notifications, and so on and so forth. If you can control them or if you turn them off in your peak working hours, it can enable you to work more kind of in a productive way, or it would enable you to focus more on your work. Number 9, physical exercise. Now, as a PhD student, you must be young, you would not feel the hit on your health. But what happens is that if you have a very unhealthy lifestyle, which many PhD students have, they sit long, long hours in the lab, working late night, and even working on weekends. What happens is that later on down the line, you might feel the impact on your health. So, what the best thing you can do is that, if nothing else, you can take a 30-minute walk each day, or I would suggest that go for more intensive exercises as well. Because if you are physically well, it would translate into a better mental health, and that would eventually help you to be more productive in terms of your research productivity. Number 10, value feedback. Now, what happens is that when your supervisor gives you feedback, or your postdoc in your research group, or a fellow research PhD student, when they give you feedback, try to value it. And how to value it is that what you can do is that the ones that are making sense to you, the one that you agree with, for those feedback or comments, you can address them. And for the ones that you don't agree with or it doesn't make sense to you, you can kind of reply to them that, okay, these are the comments that I have incorporated, and these are the ones that I disagree with. So that way they feel that, okay, they have given time to read your paper, for example, and when they have given you feedback, you value that feedback and you have incorporated the one that you were able to incorporate, or the one that was making sense to you. So that way they would feel that their feedback is valued, and next time when you reach out to them for feedback, they will be more willing to give you feedback.